I wish I had learned this truth many years ago. Be thankful for the days, good and
All
bad.
right, welcome to another episode of Warrior vs. Zombie. And it should come as no surprise if you've been here before that we've got another amazing guest. And I'll introduce her, Dr. Robin Buckley, in a second. But before we do, let's remind ourselves what Warrior vs. Zombie is all about. Success is a journey, it's not a destination. As warriors, we all have a history of ups and downs, wins and losses that all provide a foundation for who we are up to this point and also make us who we are going forward. In each episode, I interview warriors from all walks of life, entrepreneurs, artists, health practitioners, business owners, literally any inspired leader that has a story to tell. These warriors have a cause, they have vision, and they have unique value. Their vision goes generations into the future. And as I said, today's guest is no exception. Dr. Robin Buckley is an author. She's a public speaker, a cognitive behavioral coach, I have trouble saying that sometimes, who works with executive women and high-performance couples. Her proprietary coaching model uses a business framework and strategies to support clients in creating and executing concrete strategic plans for developing their careers and relationships. Robin is the founder of Insights Group, psychological and coaching services, and she has a Ph.D. in clinical psychology and has served as a doctoral professor and dissertation chair for students in business, leadership, education, and healthcare. She has published 2 books, including Voices from the Village, Advice for Girls on the Verge of Adulthood. Dr. Buckley is a columnist for Entrepreneur.com and has been featured as an expert on multiple media platforms, including Thrive Global, Authority Magazine, Nike, and various podcasts, including now Warrior vs. Zombies. So, Robin Buckley, welcome to Warrior vs. Zombie. How's your day going?
It's going great, David, and this is definitely a highlight of my day, so thanks for having me.
Hey, I'm always excited to have you. And so tell our audience, or tell me again, where exactly are you located? Because I know you're not here in Dallas with me.
I am not in Dallas. I live in Maine, but my practice, which is what I'm sitting in right now, is actually located in New Hampshire. So it is a damp, a little bit dreary day, but better than the nor'easter that we just survived, so I'll take it.
So the weather is there, is not quite delightful, but it's actually survivable. It's okay.
Yes.
Well, you look dry and warm where you're at, so that's good. So tell me a little bit about anything exciting or crazy happening in your part of the world that may not be happening here, or whether it is or not.
I don't know about globally, but personally, I'm really looking forward to this weekend because I get to see my father for the first time in 2.5 years because the pandemic. Yeah, that face says it all. I am so excited to see him. So he's coming in tonight, and so that is just he's from Florida, so it's a really lovely thing to look forward to. And on Sunday in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, one of my favorite events is happening. It's the annual Halloween parade, which was canceled last year because of COVID, and it is probably one of my favorite things about Portsmouth because there's no sign up. People just show up in costume and people go all out. So it is so fun to watch.
Yeah, I love what you just said. For one thing, there's some really cool pieces of it. What you said there was, number one, your father, who you haven't seen for 2.5 years, is coming to see you. So that means he's mobile. A lot of times when you hear parents in Florida, because I know there was it's a pretty aged population there, and a lot of them are in, there's been a lot of work in Florida to protect those folks from the pandemic, if you will, and so I'm glad to hear that he's traveling to see you. That's a benefit. And the other thing that I in this check-in, it's often because this podcast started 3 weeks before the zombie apocalypse, as I say, a lot of the discussion or check-ins have been about, hey, how's things going in your world? What's going on? How's it affecting you? And so on and so forth. But now, as we've somewhat emerged from the apocalypse, it's never something we're not going to live with in the future, I know. But I realize how much we appreciate the little things that we kind of took for granted, if you will, before we went through the last year that was, if you will, which was the all the craziness there. And now just a big Halloween celebration where we can actually get together and see each other again, see parents, see family. That's a beautiful thing. I know. We had the same thing. I have 5 kids, grandkids. I mean, I'm now seeing people that I haven't seen, and we're making plans for Thanksgiving and Halloween, and we're doing a Halloween thing. So yeah, it's a beautiful thing. Well, I'm really wanting to get into discussing your story. So let's take a quick break, and then what we'll do is we're going to come back and we get to hear a little bit about how you got from where you started, and you get to define where your journey started here, and then tell us how you got to today, and then we'll take another break. All right, so let's be back. We'll hear a little of Ricky Jean Wright, and It's Not the Getting There with Warrior versus Zombie.
But the miles become the teacher while the student learns real slow, traveling blind most of the time. Wherever you go, it's not the getting there, it's the journey every day. It's not a race to
All right, we're back with Dr. Robin Buckley, and we get to hear her story as I warned her before we got started. And so, Robin, tell me about how you got from wherever you started to today.
Yeah, at 50, looking back, it seems like a very long but short journey. And I would say that the journey progressed steadily, but with some detours, starting probably in my 20s. I went into college not realizing I was going to change my major to psychology. It was a perfect fit. I have always and never looked back. I love psychology. It's still fascinating to me. I just didn't know where it was going to bring me. And during the first part of my life, the stumbling block, probably the 2 biggest stumbling blocks were the 2 divorces I went through. Okay. So my original marriage was the first real adult love of my life. And we were dating in college, and it made logical sense in my head that we would get engaged. We were together for 2 years. I knew I loved him. So of course, the next thing is you get engaged and you get married. Even though I can clearly remember, David, the day that my boyfriend at the time proposed, I heard my gut screaming, no, say no. And I didn't listen. I mean, we had been ring shopping. We had talked about this. We had a plan for our life. Why would I say no? I just thought it was jitters. Come to find out, it was not jitters, that this man was not the right man for me. And there was a volatile history that he brought into our relationship after we were engaged. And it really was probably one of my clearest examples of listen to your gut. Listen to it when it's screaming at you. So luckily I made the right choice before it got too dangerous, and I left the relationship and jumped right into my next marriage to a man who is wonderful and sweet and fun and not controlling, everything that my first husband wasn't. But he also wasn't the right man for me. And our differences were just so dramatic in our basic value system. I think that people can be opposite, but your basic values and how you approach life have to be aligned for it to work. And we were so different. And I do believe we tried and we produced two amazing daughters from it. But ultimately, that was not going to be a sustainable marriage. And I got to the end of that marriage and thought, what the heck? Why? My background's in psychology. I've been a therapist all these years. I work with people. How can I keep making such, in my mind, horrible mistakes? At that time, I was transitioning from doing traditional therapy into coaching, because I had been trained as a coach way back in 2005, before anybody really knew what coaching was. And the women that I worked with in the coaching model very regularly brought up their relationships. There was no separation between work and home, that one affected the other. So we would talk about their relationships very often. And I would bring them back to the idea, well, you're successful in business or law or whatever their field was. Tell me what you do well. Like, what are your strengths in business that make you so successful? And they'd be able to list off their strengths. And I very often would turn around and say, okay, which of those do you use in your relationships? And one of the first ones I clearly remember was an attorney. She was one of the partners in her firm. She was moving up further. And she was in charge of business negotiations. And I said to her, tell me what negotiations are like. And so she could rattle it off, tell me what she did. You could see her confidence as she's talking about it. And I said, okay, which of those skills do you use with your husband? And she went silent. She's like, none. It's my marriage. I'm like, right, but you're good at negotiation. And in all our interactions, it's negotiation. Maybe not manipulation or trying to get, only what you want. I said, but it is negotiation. Why can't you do the same in your relationship? And it was a light bulb for her, but it was a light bulb for me saying, wait a minute, this might work. This approach of let's construct a platform for our relationships based on business models, based on what we do in business and how it can work. So I started working with clients with that model in mind and expanded from just individual work into couples work. And it has been fun because the couples that align with this mentality, they settle right into it. It's concrete. It is something tangible for them based on their strengths. So they don't have to reinvent themselves. And I love it. And luckily I followed it to my third marriage that is very successful. And I have no doubt that it will be successful in the future.
So a few things, and I know we're getting kind of close to where you are today and where you're going, but I want to back up because you did say some interesting things about your story that I think the warriors on the call need to understand, and that is, one is that we all have our own failures and we all have our own zombies and we all make decisions, and you made some, and those decisions can really knock you for a loop. And you also learn that in your own way, that working with counseling, even though that's the thing, is those of us who have the responsibility or the job to help other people often need help ourselves. That's why I always say every coach, if they don't have a coach, shouldn't be a coach. Every therapist who doesn't have a therapist shouldn't be a therapist. This is my philosophy, by the way. I just believe that we all need to be on the journey, and we need to have people. And it sounds like you had that, and it sounds like also you did, like many warriors that we've talked with, is that you learned along the way, and the things that you learned that you had to employ to overcome your own zombies, your own challenges, the failed relationships. And oh, by the way, you mentioned women, and I know that you're focused on women, but I think when we talked originally, I shared with you that I've never worked with a man in the executive space, regardless of the role, who once the relationship became trusted and we started working together to help each other along our own journeys, that relationships at home didn't come into play. Yeah. I think it's truth in every aspect. That's just my opinion, but what you said there, it's not limited to just the women in the world, because frankly, the guys, in my perspective, often have more of a challenge because we try to put a very hard line between those at times, just like the one you mentioned in the situation in your journey to today, where, oh no, that's work, this is home, those two different, no, they're not two different things. Mm-hmm. You are the same person, you're just in a different venue. And so it doesn't matter, and you may have a different role, but again, the role doesn't define you. And that's one of the truths that, you just revealed in your story.
Yep. Our relationships are really, in my opinion, a big part of our identity. So you can't just check your identity at the office door and expect to now adopt a new identity. It's integrated and very much overlap or are related. So I don't know many people, and I think the only people that can do it successfully have actually more of a dysfunction when you can just completely separate and shut down and somehow move it, not even within a box, but out of the room. That's not authentic. So I think your point is true, David, that men and women, and it's funny because in the work I do with couples, it is amazing when the men start opening up because, and not falling into the stereotype that they're supposed to be strong and they're supposed to, whatever, fill in the blank. They desperately want, at least the men I've worked with, they desperately want their relationships to work. They want to make their significant other happy. And it's not the first, I've heard it repeatedly, typically more so from my male clients. Just tell me the script, tell me what the script is, and I will follow the script. And I love that because they just want to know how to make it better, and they're willing to do whatever they can to do so.
Yeah, and that's very powerful. So of all of the, you've had now 3 marriages, and obviously looks like the current one's going to stick and everything else, and the challenges that presented in your practice and those kinds of things. Of all of the things that you've overcome, can you put a head on it? What was the one probably thing that I think you looked at on yourself that was the hardest one for you to overcome?
I actually wish there was one specific thing. I think it's more of a theme that when I don't achieve success, whatever I've defined it as, and it's not unique to me, but it sets me back, and it makes me doubt not just whatever was my focus and my that part of my identity, but all parts of my identity. And it takes everything that I help other people do, all the strategies. And thankfully, my husband's in the same field. So sometimes he'll step in and say, now, what would you tell a client? How would you do that? And I take that gratefully rather than in a defensive way. So it takes all I can to say, okay, all right. And there's another opportunity to learn, another opportunity to grow. And yep, it sucks. And I don't like it. And it makes me angry, but I'm going to I can stay there, or I can use that energy to figure a solution. And that actually is the reason I'm so confident about my current marriage, is because my husband and I were best friends for 20 years before we got married, and in different relationships and all that. But his mantra in life that I happily stole was, there's always a solution. And there is. It might not be the solution you originally expected, but there's always a solution, always. And once we settle our thoughts, which lowers our negative emotions, we can see the solutions. And that's probably my biggest takeaway and my reminder every time there is an obstacle, big or small. Okay, I'm not perfect, nor do I want to be perfect. And this is an opportunity for me to get closer to my goal, but maybe in a different path.
That's beautiful. Actually, that's brilliant. I mean, honestly, you say it's a theme, it's not a specific, but it is very specific in terms of that it doesn't matter what our role is outside ourselves. We all have that inner zombie. We all have that doubt, fear. I've experienced it myself, where I was financially successful and then had the experience of almost losing everything, and it all of the confidence and all of the things and all the, yeah, and that's no problem, do this or do that, is easy when you haven't experienced it.
Right.
But the problem is when you're in it, even if it's yourself, it's, you have the same challenges to overcome as your clients, right? I mean, you're, just like you said, your husband's advice is brilliant as well, is that, you know, what would you tell somebody else? I have to ask myself that. Sometimes one of the most powerful things I get is when a client, which could be one of my kids, by the way, calls me and says, I'm having this problem, and then I proceed to explain to them and ask them all those questions. And then when I'm done with that conversation, I go, boy, I feel better. I guess
Yeah.
I needed to ask those questions of myself. I know the answers to those. So, anyway, well, let's do this. I think we've gotten to today, and I think that this has been great. And I want to talk about kind of where you're at today, why you're doing what you're doing today, what you're doing, what kind of impact you'd like to have. And then we'll be right back with your vision, your value.
Perfect.
Okay, so let's hear another quick snippet of It's Not the Getting There by Ricky Jean Wright, and we'll be right back with Dr. Robin Buckley and Warrior versus Zombie. All right, we are back, and Robin, it's been great, and we're already kind of getting some insights into what's turning you on today and what you're excited about and where you're going. But tell me this, why are you doing what you're doing today? What's the unique value? I think I've got some insights there from what you've already said. And then what kind of impact are you looking to have going forward?
Yeah. Why do I do what I do? I do it. It's as simple as I really enjoy helping people, and specific to coaching, I really enjoy helping people by letting them help themselves. You know, that mantra that very often is throughout coaching, that the client is the expert on their life. I really believe. I don't go home with them. I don't live with them. They know what is going on in their lives. And I believe that everybody can get to the right answers for themselves. My job is to help clear out the cobwebs that are creating the cognitive blocks and the emotional blocks. And once those cobwebs are out of the way, it is amazing. And maybe you've seen this in your own work, David, how quickly people then are like, oh, there it is. There it is. They put the pieces together faster and faster when everything else is functioning in that optimal way or close to optimal way. Mm-hmm. So that's what I have always loved, helping people get to the places they want to be. I'll use your phrase, it turns me on. It's a charge to watch that happen for someone else. And know that I had the honor of being part of that, even though I'm never the solution, but I'm part of their process. So that's why I do it.
So, and the value, I mean, there's obviously a lot of therapists, a lot of counselors, a lot of people who are in the same space, but what would you look at what you do and probably can be seen in the clients that gravitate towards you, your ideal client, if you will. But what kind of unique value are you seeing yourself providing today to those that come into your world?
Well, there's a couple things, and I've gotten better at using this as how I explain what I do. You know, my background is in clinical psychology, so I really clearly understand the brain behavior connection. And I'm also actually trained as a coach, so I understand that therapy in that model is not coaching and should not be coaching, that they're very dissimilar, but they can lend themselves to helping me understand how to best help individuals, how to best help my individual clients or my couples. And when you're piecing it down to even more specifically, the model I use is, I'm excited about it because it offers an option to couples that is different than couples therapy. A lot of people are intimidated by going into therapy individually, never mind as a couple. A lot of couples see it as a last-ditch Hail Mary before they potentially get divorced. So they avoid it. And they avoid it because they assume that in couples therapy, and I think it's a safe assumption, that it's going to be painful. And there's going to be a lot of emotions that have to be dragged up. And I love the idea that the work I do and the model that I created is based on the idea of objective strategies. And we're looking at where are you now and where do you want to get to in the future? And I will very often say to my clients, I don't care what happened in the past. After I make sure that clients don't have something that should be in therapy, like addiction or trauma or abuse or an infidelity, that they should start in therapy. But the clients I work with, and you're talking about, your ideal client, these are couples that are motivated to make their relationships work, either right from the beginning before they actually make a commitment, and they want that platform because they don't want to make the mistakes they've seen other couples in their lives make, or they're in a rut and they know they still want to be together. They know they want their commitment to work. So they want to figure out ways to make it work. And that to me is exciting, that it gives people, when they say, oh, we have to go to couples therapy, I'll say, why? What is it about that you think you need therapy versus coaching? And then they're like, tell me the difference. And I'm like, okay, I'm happy to tell you the difference. And maybe you're right. Maybe you do need therapy. Again, not the expert, but there is another option. I like having options and giving options to people to see what works best for them.
That's beautiful. Yeah. And in fact, it's pretty clear to me. I mean, let me ask you this in terms of impact. Are you focused in the area in New Hampshire, Maine, there, your practice? If anything were possible, and as I think we've shared before in our previous discussion, I believe all things are possible. But if anything were possible, what kind of impact would you have, not just on the individual clients? How big is it? Are you looking to, you've written a book, you've gotten some, what's your vision for your impact?
My vision for my impact is, right now, my clients are everywhere in the United States. Sometimes they're internationally based because of work. So it's not uncommon that I'll do a couples coaching session and one person's in England and one person's in California, and we have to figure out what time zone makes the most sense for everybody. The only thing I don't have yet is actual international couples, but that is part of the eventual goal, is to be able to offer this in a bigger way and train other people to do it. Because again, having options. So I don't expect to work with every couple in the world, because my model doesn't work for every couple, but at least I'm one of the options they can choose from. And while I do have 2 books that are out there, there is a 3rd one in the works that should be done, I'm hoping this time next year. And it outlines the whole process of what couples coaching looks like. So since it's already trademarked, the idea behind it is simply called Marriage LLC. And it's looking at marriage or a relationship from a business perspective.
Yeah, that sounds brilliant. Is it going to be like a workbook type of methodology?
I thought it was originally just a traditional book to kind of as an overview of everything, to acclimate people to the idea. And then there'll be online courses that are associated with office hours, that are associated with a workbook. So again, because I think that every couple works in different ways. And you don't necessarily have to see me to make it work. If you can do it on your own, that's awesome. So however I can break this into opportunities for couples, again, to have options. I like options in my personal life, so I like being able to give other people options to make their lives the way they want them to be.
Wow, that's brilliant. Well, let's take another quick break. And when we come back, we're going to go into what I call the land the plane segment. So kind of want you to digest down a couple of the things that we've said. And if you could want us to take away anything from this podcast, either in your story or where you're at today and what you're doing, the impact, what would that be? And then I want to make sure the audience knows how they can follow up and stay in touch with you. So let's take another quick break. Hear another segment of It's Not the Getting There with Ricky Jean Wright, and we'll be right back with Robin Buckley and Warrior vs.
It's
Zombie.
not a race to see how many people know your name. One day you realize time was worth more than the gold. It's not the getting there. When you get there, you'll know. Funny how wisdom.
All right, Robin, It's been an amazing journey. I'm really enjoying getting to know you and seeing things on your side of the world and your angle on the beach ball and all those kinds of things. So as I said before the break, share with us if we took away anything from this podcast. What would you want us to take away?
Sure. I'm going to start with a slightly weird place, my tagline. I went through, I don't even know how many taglines. And the one I have now is exactly my perspective on pretty much everything, personally and professionally. What if you could achieve all that you want? And it starts with identifying and saying out loud, what do you want? It's not selfish. It's not something that should be hidden or be kept in the back until everybody else gets what they want. You can ask for what you want and then work towards it. So whether it's at an individual level or a couple level or a family level, say what you want. It's not demanding other people do it for you. It's not demanding that everybody else falls in line with it. But if you're willing to say, this is what I want, and this is what I'm going to do to work towards it. And if any of you want to participate with me, awesome. If they don't, that's okay. They still get the best parts of you, because if you're going after what you want, your energy is up, you're connected authentically to yourself, you're happier, you're more satisfied with life. And if you think it's selfish, watch the people around you, because they're going to thrive just by being around that energy, just by being around you. So that is my one global takeaway. Just say what you want, say it clearly to yourself and to everybody around you, and then go after it. Whether it means working with a coach or a therapist or a consultant or whoever it is, there's lots of great resources out there for you to steadily achieve exactly the life you want.
Wow. I'm not going to mess with that one. That is, I love your tagline. I love the thought. It is very powerful in its simplicity. It really is. I mean, we just tend to live our lives sometimes, and I don't mean that we have to just be selfish. Like you said, it's not a selfish thing, but if we don't take care of ourselves and what we want, and know what we want, know if anything were possible, where would we be going with this, what would our ideal day look like. I say similar things, maybe not as simple as you've said it there, which is, what do you want? What do you want? And then get on the journey to be there. And guess what? Everybody that loves and care about you and should be in your life will be lining up right alongside you. They're not walking your path, but they're going to align with you pretty well, because there's no question as to what you want and where you're going. So that's an amazing, amazing takeaway. Thank you. I thank you for sharing that. I love it.
Yeah, I have a very clear example, if you don't mind me sharing it. I was offered a keynote speech earlier this week with a local organization, and speaking is something I want to do more and more of. I've done it in the past, but not as much, especially the pandemic. And the event fell on the first day of the vacation my husband and I were taking to celebrate our 10-year anniversary. And I said to him, yeah, I'm going to turn him down because we're going to be flying out. And he's like, nope, let me go check. Let me see if I can change the flights. And if it's not too much money, you should do it. He's like, because you want to do that. And I don't want you turning down anything if we can make this work. He changed the flight reservations. We're flying out the next day. We lose one day of vacation, but I get to accomplish one more puzzle piece closer to my want. And I didn't ask him to do any of that. He wanted to, because he saw how excited I was about being given the offer, and then disappointed that I was going to have to turn it down. And he just made it happen. That's what stating what you want clearly can do in your life.
Beautiful. And it could be in every aspect, both your marital relationships, in your business, with your clients, with your partners, literally anything. I think that truth applies across the board. Well, I don't want to mess with that anymore. It's a great story, a great illustration. I love it. So how do we stay in touch with you? You're on the Be Connected platform. So is it under Dr. Robin Buckley, or is it Robin Buckley? Is that how we find you and Be Connected? Extremely powerful place to connect with people. Everybody in that community. The thing I love about it is we're all intentional. That's how we connected. That's how I've connected to a lot of the guys. I mean, it's through that type of intentional relationship where we get what we want out of our connections, right? Or we get the we can be clear on who we are and where we're going. Any other ways that we can reach out or follow up with you?
Yeah, all the typical ways, but I think the most fun is on Instagram. It's Dr. Robin Buckley, all one word, no periods. It's my clients like it a lot because it's a lot of motivational stuff. There's clips of me reminding them of strategies, so they get a little bit of me and a little bit of the strategies we work on. So it's just fun.
Awesome. Well, I guess I didn't know that you're out there on Instagram, so I will definitely be. The Vision Warrior will be reaching out to you on Instagram, and so we can share. I'm not as pervasive, probably it sounds like, as you, but that is a fun platform to be on. Well, let's do this. For those that are on here live, we're gonna. On the audio, you're going to hear a little bit more of Ricky Jean Wright as we end. And just remember that every Thursday, 11 a.m. Central, 12 p.m. Eastern, we're on for another episode. And we'll be back next Thursday with Warrior versus Zombie. And Robin, thank you. This has been totally a blast. And I really, really appreciate you sharing with our audience.
Thanks, David. This was just so much fun.
All right. Well, you have a beautiful day. And for those of you that are listening just to the audio and missing all of our fun on the video side, you'll hear a little more of Ricky Jean Wright. And we'll be back next week.
It's not the getting there, it's the journey every day. It's not a race to see how many people know your name. One day you realize time was worth more than the gold. It's not the getting there, when you get there you'll know. One day you realize time was worth more than the gold. It's not the getting there, when you get there you'll know.